Greetings. As I indicated in my introductory presentation, I want to provide you with my vision for this nation, and I want to do so before I delve into the specifics of the objectives, strategies, and goals we will employ to defeat the threats to our liberties. I want you and I focused on the same ends and the means by which we shall achieve those ends. To do otherwise will jeopardize the efficiency and effectiveness by which we will prevail over the threats. Let me also add that the threats we face and the reasons for their creation have been evolving for generations. In consideration of this fact, we must act with confident patience and enduring resolve, knowing that by the achievement of each goal within the course of our strategies, we will secure our objectives and restore to our nation the greatest possible opportunities for the recovery and sustainment of our forefathers' blessings. First and foremost, I envision our federal government acting within the enumerated powers of the Constitution. In doing so, I see the federal government as being the least of your day-to-day governmental interests, and particularly in times of peace as compared to that which will affect you at the state, county, and other municipal levels. This is not my original thought, but that of the chief author and a principal defender of the Constitution, James Madison, who went on to become the 4th President of the United States. President Madison gave us a good accounting of the intent of the federal government in his defense of the Constitution in Federalist Paper number 45. When he wrote, and I quote, "The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. The former will be exercised principally on external objects as war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce, with which last the power of taxation will, for the most part, be connected. The powers reserved to the several states will extend to all the objects which, in the ordinary course of affairs, concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people, and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. The operations of the federal government will be most extensive and important in times of war and danger, those of the state governments in times of peace and security." Unquote. Refocusing the federal government on the few and defined powers of the Constitution will also make it incumbent upon every state, county, and municipal government to act faithfully and responsibly as their residents gain greater opportunity to be more focused upon the operations of each. The people will also have greater opportunity to seek relief in another more favorable municipality, county, or state when the same are no longer encumbered by a monopolizing federal government. In other words, states and their political subdivisions will compete for the favor and services of its citizens and the benefits of their incomes as an extension of free enterprise woven into every government, just as it will be solidly woven into the commercial sectors of our nation. I see our federal government focused principally on national defense and the regulation of commerce, both domestic and international, and in such a way as to optimize the opportunities for the stimulation of our economy through free enterprise and the ideals of capitalism. In addition to maintaining a military second to none, I see our borders secured and our citizens protected from alien threats, both from within and without, to the maximum extent possible. The Constitution requires of the President in Article 2, Section 3, and I quote, "He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed," unquote. To do otherwise with respect to such matters as illegal immigration would be a dereliction of constitutionally mandated responsibility. But let me add this. I leave open the door for an alternative to the immediate expulsion of peaceable illegal immigrants in a plan I have posted to my website under the Immigration tab. Pending the outcome of polls, surveys, and potential modifications to my proposal, I will act immediately after entering office to implement the will of the citizenry and bring about a termination of this threat so long overdue a lawful response. I envision a government that spends to the extent necessary to fulfill its constitutional obligations, but not beyond a balanced budget, except for that which is absolutely and temporarily necessary to the defense of the nation in a time of war or national disaster. The war on terrorism will be one of an undefined length and, as such, must be absorbed as a part of our balanced budget plan rather than an unfunded program that creates a budget deficit. The idea of balancing a budget will shift from increasing revenues to match expenses to that of decreasing expenses to match revenues. And we will establish a schedule for us eliminating our debt that will be frequently reported to the people to serve as a gauge for every American to assess our progress. In parallel with a balanced budget and the elimination of our debt, I see our nation returning to a system of federal revenue collection based on consumption. We will eliminate income, payroll, corporate, capital gains, estate, and gift taxes, and replace all of them with a single national sales tax that also includes a monthly tax rebate to reduce or eliminate the taxes paid for food, housing, and medicine. We will also eliminate the Internal Revenue Service, which can be accomplished by delegating authority for the administration and enforcement of the national sales tax to the states. For their participation, the states will be authorized to retain a portion of the revenues as compensation for services rendered. Such delegation will provide significant improvements in system efficiency and cost effectiveness to the benefit of the taxpayer. Interestingly, it complies with Secretary Alexander Hamilton's recommendation for the same, as he stated in Federalist Paper number 36, from which I quote, "Make use of the state officers and state regulations for collecting the additional imposition. This will best answer the views of revenue because it will save expense in the collection and will best avoid any occasion of disgust to the state governments and to the people." Unquote. Replacing the IRS at the federal level will be a small sales tax bureau to provide federal oversight of the sales tax and an excise tax bureau that will administer those excises not within the purview of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The system of principally taxing consumption, like no other system, will create the greatest possible opportunities for the growth of our economy. Through the resultant effects of expanded tax base, robust investment, low interest lending, and unparalleled financial competitiveness on a global scale, we will see the immediate return of jobs to America and the creation of boundless numbers of new jobs as industries are reborn or arise anew across our nation. In this vision, never again will the American people be subject to an absolute penalty system like that which we have today in the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. And no longer will innocent, lawful Americans fear their government for reasons specific to their inability to comprehend incomprehensible federal revenue laws. In keeping with the thought of comprehending our laws, I will challenge the Congress to write laws so as to be readily understood and of reasonable length to accommodate those to whom it will apply and not require them to seek services of an attorney or a court ruling for interpretation of the law. The House Legislative Council's Manual on Drafting Style, which provides guidance to legal counsel writing laws for the Congress, makes the point as clear as any, and I quote, "It should be written in English for real people," unquote. It will be my promise to the American people, as I hope it will be the promise of every legislator, that I, as your legal representative, will never sign a bill or other document committing the American people to a certain course of action that I have not read and understand. Adding to that, I will not sign any legislation into law that contains other than that which is required to achieve the principal objective of the legislation. In other words, I will not concur with pork barrel legislation, log rolling, and earmarks that have marred the credibility and integrity of our legislative and executive branches of government. Contributing greatly to the reduction of these items will be the significantly decreased size of government and the elimination of many of the programs previously facilitated by such incorporations into bills. Whatever the focus of the bill shall be, then the financing will be commensurate with the major programs identified within the bill. I will expect Congress to focus their efforts on that which is best for the nation in these perilous times, thus preserving that which is best for the state or district each represents. I envision a federal government fully open and accessible to the people for which it was created and intended to serve. In that same regard, the servants of the people will serve with no greater reward or benefit than that expected for whom they serve, and the security of government service and its benefits will be no greater than that of the people. Government service, and particularly elected service, will be refocused from one of careerism to one of sacrifice, both financially and physically. And such sacrifice will be as strongly evident in the office of the President as it will be anywhere in the federal government. I see our federal health care programs transitioning from a fiscal liability to that of being an asset, and done so within the constitutional framework of providing a common defense and promoting the general welfare. We will do this at a cost of tens of billions of dollars and with a return on our investment versus the current system of Medicare and Medicaid that costs the American people over $1 trillion annually and with no return on investment to the general public. We will turn national health care into an asset for all Americans by focusing on increasing the quantity and availability of health care professionals, by implementing tort reform, and by providing increased opportunities for private insurance programs to which each state will be required to provide unobstructed access for their citizens as a matter of federal commerce regulation. And as in so many other matters of both national and individual interest, I see Americans doing what Americans do best, and that is recognizing the needs of their fellow man and, through either individual or collective efforts, resolve issues of a benevolent nature more efficiently and cost-effectively without the intervention of government. Put another way, I want to restore the resources and opportunities to the people to exercise responsible, voluntary benevolence versus the people made involuntarily responsible to a government that has been too often engaged in irresponsible attempts at benevolence. Only an individual can be benevolent, a trait that no government can ever attain. And last, for this brief presentation, I see the Social Security system on a path to termination, but not without having first met its obligations to those that have directly contributed to the system. This is one issue that most seeking federal office either neglects for fear of the consequences to their campaign, or makes promises of its continuance without regard to the facts and consequences to the nation. We must eliminate Social Security because, first, it cannot be sustained with the growing imbalance of workers versus retirees. Second, it imposes multiple direct and indirect taxes on the contributors. Third, it is a regressive tax impacting the lower and middle income earners more than the higher income earners throughout their working careers. And lastly, among other reasons, it can fail to provide both the contributor and the nation with the returns and benefits that may be more likely realized through private, diversified investments. While Social Security and subsequent social programs were, in my opinion, made possible through a series of progressive maneuvers of questionable constitutional merit, the pilfering of the trust funds by the government without a plan to restore them to a sound financial position is perhaps the greatest example of irresponsible governing in our nation's history. Such result provides clear and convincing evidence that social programs are best left to the people or to the states. Here then is how I sum up my vision. A significantly smaller government, focused on the enumerated powers in the Constitution, with orders of magnitude less programs and federal laws to enforce, and all operating efficiently and effectively within the means of the people it serves. Such a vision, too, I believe, will in time eliminate most, though I would pray for all, contempt the people have for their government, a contempt that grows in direct proportion to the government's departure from its constitutional authority. My fellow Americans, that is my vision, and one I believe the founders would have again signed their names to, just as they did to bring this nation to fruition following their defeat of subjugation from without, that we have since allowed to evolve from within. I encourage you to continue reading the presentations I have posted at www.kerrybowers.com and determine for yourself if I am the one with a vision, objectives, strategies, and goals that you are willing to place in your confidence to lead this nation back to its just blessings. I thank you for your attention to this message.